Hello and welcome to this laser learning webinar on adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and how ACEs can affect children and young people with a focus on war and conflict. What are ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences are highly stressful and potentially traumatic events or situations that occur during childhood or adolescence. ACEs affect children from all backgrounds and at any social and economic level, although there are risk factors that make some children more vulnerable. Some children grow up in stressful environments where they don't feel safe or happy. This can lead to behavioural, emotional, and physical problems throughout their lives. They may also experience traumatic events, such as war and conflict, that can affect them for a long time afterwards. Some degree of adversity and stress is a normal part of development that can help children learn how to react to future challenges. But a child who is repeatedly exposed to adversity may experience toxic stress, and this can disrupt brain development as well as damaging other organ systems. It can also affect the way children respond to stressful situations in the future and make them less resilient. REWIRED for survival. Prolonged or frequent stress can alter neural circuits in the brain, which distinguish whether situations or people are safe, dangerous, or life-threatening. When we spend too much time in a fight or flight state, we're in a higher state of alert and our body doesn't get a chance to rest and recover. This higher state of alert or hyperarousal can negatively impact on heart rate, digestion, respiratory rate, and pupillary response. When children experience frequent trauma and adversity, they become adapted to survival in the worst conditions. This often means that a child is edgy, quick to anger, impulsive, and hypervigilant. They're also likely to rely on their reactionary coping skills and behaviors when faced with future stress. This is because the brain has mapped these reactions as critical to survival. These reactionary coping skills include lashing out, physically and verbally, crying or screaming, shutting down emotionally and becoming non-responsive, and working hard to please others, being hyper aware of how others feel, and at times manipulating others into doing what they think is needed in order to keep the peace. In children and young people who are experiencing toxic stress, the limbic system reactions often overrides the cerebral cortex thinking functions, and this can carry into adulthood. Children and young people, especially young children who are exposed to adversity, have an increased risk of negative health outcomes throughout their life. The CDC-Kaiser ACE Study found a strong link between childhood adversity and poor health and well-being. Did you know? ACEs have also been linked to mental ill health in adults. The World Health Organization estimates that 30% of adult mental illness in 21 countries could be attributed to ACEs. The charity Young Minds found that people with 4 or more ACEs were 4 times more likely to have low levels of mental well-being and life satisfaction than people who hadn't experienced childhood adversity or trauma. It's important to note that not everyone who is exposed to 1 or more ACE will experience negative health outcomes. There are protective factors that can increase resilience and help children and young people bounce back from adversity. If a child has supportive relationships at home and in the community, positive experiences in education, and a safe and stable, including financially stable, home environment, then this reduces their vulnerability to poor health and well-being. Building protective factors for the child can counter some of the harm that adversity in childhood causes. War and conflict. Many children get caught up in national conflicts and conflicts between different countries. Many modern conflicts are prolonged and can cause children to grow up in a war zone or refugee camp. For the children who are able to escape the conflict, they often have to embark on dangerous journeys and try and settle in unfamiliar places. Sometimes they're unaccompanied by their parents they depended on for emotional support and their most basic needs. The number of refugees fleeing from terrors in their home country or being forcefully displaced is sadly increasing in recent times. Did you know? According to the United Nations report on the impact of armed conflict on children, half of the civilians affected by war are children and adolescents under 18 years of age. Children are the most vulnerable group in a war, and they're often affected by displacement, loss of home and family members, and separation from parents. This creates long-term consequences for their growth and development, which lasts well into adulthood. Since children are still developing, both physically and psychologically, their health is seriously endangered in war. In their home country, they likely face poor living conditions with inadequate sanitation, unreliable energy and heating, and limited access to nutritious food and safe, clean water. As a result, they could arrive in the UK malnourished and with a weakened immune system. They may not have had access to consistent schooling, and this can significantly impact on their learning and development. Their parents may not have been able to provide them with a consistent, loving, and secure relationship whilst they were experiencing extreme stress themselves and preoccupied with survival. These children may feel alone, socially isolated, and left to make sense of adverse events themselves. This can lead to mental health difficulties, poor well-being, and trouble forming relationships in later life. Should a young child experience a situation like war or conflict, then it could alter the neural circuits in their brain, which distinguishes whether situations or people are safe, dangerous, or life-threatening. These children often spend a lot of time in hyperarousal and facing emotional distress, which affects their ability to regulate their emotions. Supportive adults. Prevention is, of course, better than cure when protecting children from adversity. Reducing the exposure of children, young children in particular, to extremely stressful situations would be the best way to protect their developing brain and bodies. When this isn't possible, and the child has already been exposed to an adverse experience, the most important factor in protecting them from further harm is stable and loving relationships. When the parent or carer is unresponsive, inconsistent, or unavailable, then other adults, family members, friends, school staff, and communities need to intervene with the help of support services to address the source of stress and lack of stability in the child's life. Research shows that even under the most stressful conditions, supportive, responsive relationships with caring adults as early in life as possible can prevent or reverse the damaging effects of toxic stress response. The brain can reorganize and form new neural networks throughout a person's life, so resilience and trauma-informed care can help to protect, rewire, and repair a child or young person's brain from the consequences of toxic stress. If you would like to learn more about ACEs, you may wish to take the Laser CPD short course on ACE awareness, or considering using the Laser Learning lesson resources we've recently written for the NCFE Cash Level 2 Award in Understanding Adverse Childhood Experiences.